The future was a world of extremes, where the boundaries between humanity and technology had blurred beyond recognition. In the wake of centuries of technological advancement, humanity had been irrevocably altered. The human race had developed genetically enhanced soldiers, beings of superhuman strength, intelligence, and endurance engineered for war. These individuals were the crowning achievement of a new era, the product of genetic modifications, cybernetic enhancements, and neural integrations. They were the perfect warriors, created not by nature but by the hands of humans who had long since abandoned the limits of biology. The war that had begun generations ago had consumed entire planets, tearing apart civilizations, and transforming the landscape of existence into a place where survival depended on strength, speed, and the willingness to adapt. But as these augmented humans became the dominant force in the galaxy, another faction began to grow in defiance those who refused augmentation. The human rebels, living in the shadows, fighting against the overwhelming tide of technological enhancement, sought to preserve the essence of human nature. To them, the augmentation of the human body was a perversion, an affront to the sanctity of life and identity. These rebels, organics, as they were called, believed in the purity of the human form and fought fiercely to halt the spread of genetic manipulation. Among the soldiers, there was a man named Marcus. He had been born in the laboratories of the highest military research facilities, his genetic code rewritten from the moment of his conception to create the ultimate soldier. His body had been enhanced with neural implants, cybernetic limbs, and the strength of 100 normal men. He was, in essence, a weapon, a tool designed for destruction. His training had begun before he could walk, before he could speak, and by the time he was considered fully operational, he was already more machine than man. His thoughts were aligned with the goals of the empire that had created him, to fight, to conquer, to never question. He had no need for the pleasures of the flesh or the distractions of emotion. He was perfect, and he knew it. His loyalty to the system, the empire that had raised him, was absolute. That was until he met her. Her name was Kala. She was a rebel fighter, an organic, one of the many humans who had taken up arms against the empire's expansion. Kala was everything Marcus was not: wild, untamed, and fiercely human in a way that made his enhanced mind real. She was a skilled fighter, but her greatest weapon was her ideology. She believed in the sanctity of the human form, in the power of the natural mind and body, and she fought with an intensity that left a lasting impression on those who met her. Where Marcus was an instrument of war, honed and precise, Kala was a living testament to defiance. She was raw, uncompromising, and unyielding in her belief that the human race should not be subject to the whims of technology. Their first encounter was one of chaos. Marcus had been deployed to a rebel stronghold, an underground base hidden in the mountains, to crush the resistance. The mission was clear: destroy everything in their path. The rebels, though fierce, were no match for the sheer might of the genetically enhanced soldiers, and the battle had raged across the underground tunnels for hours. Marcus had been tasked with leading the assault, his presence a signal of the Empire's unyielding power. But amidst the destruction, something unexpected happened. As he turned a corner in one of the rebel tunnels, he found himself face to face with Kala. She had been waiting for him. There was a moment of stunned silence as they regarded one another. Marcus, the perfect soldier, was trained to see enemies as targets, to view them with the cold detachment of a weapon. But Kala looked at him as though she could see right through him, as though she could sense the humanity still buried beneath the layers of augmentation. The rebel leader's eyes were defiant, full of life, burning with the fire of rebellion, and it was that fire that caught Marcus off guard. For the first time in his existence, he hesitated. Kala, too, was taken aback by the sight of Marcus. She had heard stories of the enhanced soldiers, their cold, mechanical precision, their unyielding obedience, but seeing one face to face was something different. He was a walking machine, a living weapon, and yet there was something almost human about him. The way he stood, as though uncertain, as though there was a small part of him that wasn't sure why he was there. She raised her weapon, but she didn't fire. Something about the moment made her pause as well. She could sense that he wasn't like the others. He was different. The standoff lasted for only a few seconds, but it felt like an eternity. Then, without a word, Marcus made the first move. His enhanced body moved with the fluidity of a predator, but as he closed the distance between them, something strange happened. He stopped. Just a hair's breadth away, he looked down at Calla, and for the first time in his life, he was uncertain. "You are not afraid," Marcus said, his voice low, mechanical, but with a trace of curiosity. "No," Calla replied, her voice steady, even though her heart was racing. "I've faced worse than you." They fought, of course. Calla was skilled, and Marcus was an unstoppable force. But there was a hesitation in his movements, something that unsettled him. Calla was no less determined. She was fighting for the future of humanity, to preserve what was left of it, to protect the essence of who they were before it was consumed by machines like Marcus. But as the battle wore on, she could sense something about him. His moves, though precise, were tinged with something that spoke of doubt. He wasn't just a soldier anymore. There was something in him, a flicker of life, a question he didn't have the answers to. In the heat of the battle, they both fell back, each retreating to their corners. But the encounter had changed them both. The seed of something had been planted. The next few weeks were a blur of skirmishes and battles. Marcus and Calla met again on the battlefield, again and again, and with each encounter, the dynamic between them shifted. At first, their meetings were filled with hostility. She fired shots at him, and he returned fire with precision. But each time they crossed paths, there was a lingering moment of hesitation, a feeling that neither of them could quite shake. Something was drawing them together, despite their differences. For Marcus, it was a sense of discovery. He had been created to fight, to serve the Empire, to suppress rebellion. But with Calla, everything he had known was being questioned. She wasn't like the others. She wasn't simply a threat to be neutralized. She was a force of nature, an embodiment of everything he had never understood: freedom, passion, rebellion. He began to wonder what it would be like to experience those things, to be like her. To be human. For Calla, it was a sense of vulnerability. She had always seen the augmented soldiers as little more than machines. They were the enemy, the very embodiment of what she was fighting against. But Marcus was different. He had been born human, just like her. He had been changed, modified, turned into something else. But there was still a part of him, something buried deep beneath the enhancements, that made him more than just a weapon. One night, after a particularly brutal battle, Marcus found himself alone, standing in the wreckage of a rebel outpost. His mind was a whirl of confusion. He had seen Calla fight, seen her lead with conviction and passion, and he realized, for the first time, that he admired her. He couldn't understand why. He had been trained to view her as nothing more than a threat, but everything about her made him question his purpose. His mission was to crush the rebellion, but in his heart, he no longer felt certain. It was then that she appeared. Calla, looking as weary as he felt, stepped into the clearing. Neither of them spoke at first. There was no need. They had both known this moment was coming. "You're not like the others," she said quietly, looking at him with those knowing eyes. "I'm not," Marcus agreed, his voice softer than it had ever been. "I don't know what I am anymore." In that moment, everything shifted. They were no longer enemies. They were two souls, connected by something neither of them could name. The rebellion, the empire, the war had all faded into the background. There was only the undeniable pull between them, the deep recognition of something lost and found in each other's eyes. Calla reached out, her hand trembling slightly as she touched his arm. The sensation sent a jolt of electricity through Marcus, a feeling he had never known. Slowly, carefully, they leaned toward one another, drawn together by an invisible force. And in that moment, their lips met softly, hesitantly, but with a passion that spoke of everything they had been denied. It was a kiss born of longing, of discovery, of two people who had once been enemies but had found something far deeper than conflict, something profoundly human. As they pulled away, Breathless, Marcus's enhanced mind raced, trying to understand what had just happened. But the answer was clear. He had found in Calla something he had never known: love, humanity, connection. And for the first time, he didn't want to fight it. The war between them was far from over. But now, they had something to fight for: a love that defied the Empire, defied the rebellion, defied everything they had been taught. In a world where humanity was enhanced and corrupted, they had found each other. And that, for all its chaos, was something worth fighting for. For the first time, Marcus wasn't just a soldier. He was a man. A man in love with the one person he had been trained to destroy. And that, more than anything, would change everything.